I'm Ryan. Ben Shapiro has opinions on transgender people.
I'm Ryan. We'll discuss whether he's drunk or sober when we return to beer and politics.
You know, Betty White really is the greatest Golden Girl. Choosy parents. Choose Jif. He's so mean. He really is. Hey Ryan, are we out of partisan again?
Ben Shapiro thinks it's unreasonable for him to acknowledge transgender people by their preferred identity, drunk or sober.
I think he is crazy drunk.
Okay.
I can't even give something high enough to show how drunk he is. I don't know, 0.3, 0.99999. I don't
Comatose.
know. Yeah, just it's crazy because let me see if I can give you a scenario here. It's just, when do you even know when someone's transgender? Okay. So let's say you are walking down the street, you're looking for your friend's house, and they apparently live in the most confusing neighborhood in the world. And you go up, and while you're looking and you're bewildered, somebody walks by, and they look like either of these people. I'm on Macy's.com right now. They look like either of those people.
Okay.
You walk up to them and you say, "Excuse me." Do you say sir or miss or ma'am, or what do you say? Excuse me?
Excuse me, miss.
You say, "Excuse me, miss." Okay.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And she says with an oddly low voice, "Yes." And you say, "I'm looking for my friend's house."
Mm-hmm.
They live at, and then you give them their address. And so the person says, "Oh, that's easy. It's right down there. Take a left." And then you go, and your friend said, "Wow, I can't believe you made it here without calling me." What'd you do? You say, "I spoke to a
woman."
You spoke to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that was a woman?
Oh. Based on the way she looks.
And she didn't correct you.
No, this is true.
Right? So you say, okay, so it's a woman. So now, same scenario, walking down the street, looking for your friend's house. And you go up instead, still on Macy's.com.
Okay.
You talk to that person, top person.
Oh, sure.
And you say, "Excuse me." Do you say, "Mr., Madam, Sir," what?
I would say, "Excuse me, sir."
"Excuse me, sir." Give him the same spiel, "I'm looking for my friend's house."
Sure.
And he says, "Sure, it's down there on the left." And you go, and your friend says, "Oh, how'd you get here?" What do you say?
Oh, I asked this pleasant gentleman on the street.
How did you know?
I would say, again, based solely on appearance.
So, if you're Ben Shapiro, you have accepted their gender identity because it happened to conform with your view of them, and they didn't correct you.
Sure.
Okay, so now you go up to somebody who looks like, Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay.
Okay, so the reason I'm picking Caitlyn Jenner is because Bruce Jenner is a pretty big guy.
Right.
So as a woman, he is a fairly large woman.
Correct.
Okay, so Ben Shapiro, if he goes up to Caitlyn Jenner, we are to suppose, I'm going to even let you guess. I don't know what he would do, but what would you, now assuming Caitlyn Jenner isn't famous.
Oh, I was going to, okay.
I'd be like, so assuming it's somebody who looks like Caitlyn Jenner, okay, he goes up to this, I don't know, 6'2" person, I don't know how tall.
A large person.
He was a decathlete, so I assume he's pretty big. So he goes up to Caitlyn Jenner and he says, "Excuse me, what?"
"Excuse me, madam. Will you lift your dress?"
Exactly. Right. So he is going to pick something out of the air. He's going to say, maybe, "Excuse me, madam," and Caitlyn will answer, and that'll be the end of their discussion, and Caitlyn's identity, gender identity, matched with what he said. But let's assume he said, "Excuse me, sir," and Caitlyn Jenner says, "Oh, you mean miss, I'm Caitlyn." We're to presume he is going to not correct himself. He's going to stand by the fact that he just referred to this person as a man.
Okay.
Under the guise that he just thinks she looks manly.
I think you are not who you say you are, therefore I'm going to trust me, not you.
Exactly. So if there's any confusion at all, he's just going to stick with his guns with what he thought the gender of that person was. And we do know that there are very feminine-looking men in this world, and extremely masculine-looking women in this world, and the only time he's going to do the practical thing would be when it doesn't match what he thinks is going on. So because it'd be impractical to accept what they did. So if you fool him, he's okay with it.
Sure.
You fooled him. But if he has any question at all, he's just going to stick with his guns, which is the most unreasonable, impractical thing I can think of. I'm sorry, I've decided you're a male. I just told you I'm a female, and I have these attributes that are clearly female or womanly in general. I'm sorry, I've already decided.
You clearly don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly, you're the wrong one in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And that's practical behavior, okay?
Okay.
That's his practical behavior.
Mm.
So the only way he actually can really work out and sound like a normal person is if Caitlyn Jenner was famous and he knows that Caitlyn Jenner is indeed a male.
Sure.
So when he knows that, I guess he gets to stick by his guns on that. But really, all of this is to say, he is making a giant excuse among all of this to be a big jerk.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to be impolite. He is trying to dress up, this whole conversation is about using words as an excuse to be impolite to other people. Oh, I don't want to use words incorrectly. Well, frankly, we're not asking you to. We're asking you to use definitions that exist that you just don't like. So he wants to just be impolite. And so if you support him, you're just saying, it's okay to be impolite. And you know what? It is. There's no law.
It's not illegal.
Yeah, there's no law that says you can't be impolite. Listen, you don't have to hold doors for people. You don't have to press the keep the elevator door open button.
Press close it.
In fact, you can press close it. That's a great point. You can stand in the middle of the escalator. You don't have to move over.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to chew with your mouth closed.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to raise your kids to say Mr. and Mrs. whatever the last name is instead of a first name. You don't have to address people, say, you know what, I go by my middle name, by their middle name. You don't have to address people who go by their nicknames, by their entirely made up nickname, by the way. Typically, nicknames are entirely made up.
Yeah.
You don't have to do any of those things. But here's the problem. I bet he does every single one of those things. I bet he's probably a real nice, polite guy. But for whatever reason, he doesn't want to use a transgender person's preferred name. And let me set this straight here, make it clear. When we're talking about dealing with transgender people, in all practicality, there's only two things we're asking you to do. Use the preferred name.
Sure.
So if you are a male born Christopher, and now you're a transgender female or woman who wants to go by Christina, we're asking you to use Christina.
Okay.
And then number two is we're asking you to use a pronoun that matches the gender identity. Those are the only two things we're asking you to do.
Doesn't sound like a big ass.
It doesn't, especially knowing that he's probably polite and does all those other things nobody is making him do just to be part of polite society, including using people's fake nicknames. He's okay doing that, but he's not going to use the preferred name of the transgender person, of which he doesn't actually know is transgender unless they reveal it. He's guessing, again, trying to align with what his preconceived thoughts of that person are, and then he doesn't want to use a pronoun. That's impractical, especially once they tell you, say Christina, to go, oh, I was talking to her. That's too impractical for this guy.
Because keep in mind, it's 0.3% of people, so that must be a huge burden.
Right. Of which, some percentage of them you're not going to know are transgender.
Right.
Right, so this is burdensome. And as far as society is concerned, there's only two things you need to really worry about from society's perspective, in my opinion. One is anytime sex becomes the most important thing. So that's anytime somebody's disrobing.
Sure.
Okay? If you're disrobing with them, you're interacting, that's a big deal. Right? And the other time is athletics. Because we know biology translates differently across the sexes.
We discussed this.
Right.
It's true.
So he's just making a giant excuse to be a jerk, and that's okay. I just prefer he came out and said it. Instead of trying to use grammar and semantics and and language to hide behind. Listen, you can be a jerk. You can say, I want to treat people impolitely, even though I treat every single other person in society politely for the exact same things I'm treating them impolitely for. I'm not calling them a hypocrite, but I'm saying there's a crazy incongruency that I can't explain.
Well, it's because you're only going to be mean to a very, very small percentage of people, so chances are it's not going to bite you in the ass.
Yeah, and it's okay. All right, next one.
Cheers, my friend. So this is pretty similar for me. I'm going to say he's also just crazy drunk. He is crazy drunk. We're talking, comatose, like verging on maybe you'll make it out, maybe you won't. and the reason is because what he's really hung up on here is the amount of change that's required. He's like, if I need to pretend, you don't need to pretend. You just need to not be a jerk.
Right, be polite.
And the thing is let's say we're talking about the bathroom portion of things. We've talked about the bathrooms before. It actually requires nothing of you to allow a transgender person to come into your bathroom. Literally nothing. No one's asking you to do anything. They are actually asking you to do nothing, which is the least invasive thing you can possibly ask for.
So you're saying the most practical thing in the world would be to do nothing?
Yes. Actually, go about your current daily life as if nothing is different. And I'm going to point out that we live in a place where laws do not exist, or did not exist, saying, hey, if you got a dong, you better go into that men's bathroom. That wasn't a thing.
Yep, that's not a thing.
And you know what was a thing before that? Transgender people. Do you think that maybe you've been in the restroom with a transgender person? And if not, then do you think it's going to affect you?
Do you think if you were that you were accepting their gender identity?
Probably. Just because you didn't know it was a thing didn't mean it doesn't exist.
Because you didn't look at their genitalia.
That's a really weird thing.
That's really nice and polite of you.
Yeah, it's extremely polite not to be a groin cop. Now, also, I just want to say, there's other scenarios. I'm going to expand a little bit on what you went on. Because you're saying, like, hey, this isn't a big thing to ask. You know, you're doing all these things. You're calling people by nicknames. You know what else you do? I bet when a woman gets married, he accepts her new last name. He's not going to be like, I'm sorry, this is the name you were born with. I'm going to call you that relentlessly. I don't care if you've changed it. You know what else? I bet he's going, even maybe at the same wedding. Let's say it was a wedding, and the groom was not the best looking fella. But let's say you're in the wedding party, right? Maybe you're even the best man. And the groom's nervous, and maybe you think he's making a mistake. But you're like, it's his wedding day, and he's like, what do you think? Am I doing the right thing? He's like, yeah, buddy, you're making the right decision. Oh, you know what? And you look great. I bet he'd be happy to do that.
And that's a beautiful newborn baby you have, despite the fact it looks like a 62-year-old man.
Oh, it's, well, let's go with Seinfeld. It's breathtaking.
It's breathtaking, yeah. You tell people who have babies, you say they're beautiful. Whether or not, I bet he does, and that's not always true. We've seen really ugly babies.
Oh, gosh, yes, it's so crazy. But the idea that this is going to require so much change on his part is preposterous. It literally requires no change on your part. And it just requires, people are only asking that you not be just a monstrous asshole.
Yes, that you generally accept whatever it is they said to you. And if you say it and they correct you, you just accept whatever they say to you.
And normally in those situations you'd be like, oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
That's all.
Unless you really want to stick by your guns and say, liar.
And you know what? Again, maybe it's fine. Just accept the fact that you're a giant dick.
Yeah, you're allowed to.
Yeah. Cool. Last call?
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
As always, everyone, thanks for watching. Subscribe, share, like, tell friends. We still have the podcast.
We do. It's on SoundCloud.
Hopefully we'll get on iTunes shortly.
We're working on that. We'll see how that goes.
And remember, it's just beer. It's not beer even. It's just beer.
And politics.
We've been drinking.
It's 8%.